we have clips in our project. So our project tab and our media browser are really to do with getting the stuff into the project. So finding stuff that we need, video, audio. This could also be JPEGs and graphics a little bit later on. We're going to find them, we're going to import them, and they're going to show up in the project. Now the project is where all of our stuff is held. All of our content, our source media is all going to be in the project tab. And it also contains our sequence, which we'll come back to in a moment. Now, we can be quite tidy in how we approach the contents of the browser. Now, at the moment, we have two bins that came in automatically when we brought in our media. I have a 3-point Beach Edits and an ABCD. Now, I can open those and close those, and incidentally, this is when the project is in list mode. Now I could also be in icon mode, and that will show me these big icons. Now I like to stay in list mode because when you're in icon mode, when you go into folders, it opens up new tabs and windows. That's a personal choice. I find it a little bit messy, so I stay in list, and that allows me to toggle open bins and look at stuff. Now what I can also do is I can click and right click on the away from my content in the project, and I can go new bin, and I can call this I can call this anything, any kind of media. So I'll call this airplane pilot, for example, or pilots. And I have one of my clips then that I took in with the pilot, and I can drag that in there into that bin now, and I can organize and manage my media in there. Now this might seem like trivial, being tidy, but being tidy in a process like editing is much more important than you'd think, because editing is a good edit is the sum total of hundreds and thousands of small operations. And if you're constantly looking for stuff every time you need to do one of these small operations and you can't find it, it's going to add a little bit of time to that process. Now if you add up all of those small wasted time over the period of an edit, you could actually add hours onto an edit. If you're working on something even longer, you could add a day onto your edit just by being slightly untidy with how you manage your content here. So be tidy. It'll work in your favor when you get to the creative side of it. Now the interface. So this is the project. Up here we have the viewer, we have the timeline down here, and we have another viewer up here which you can call the canvas. And what I'll show you now is how all of these different windows relate to each other. Now if I have a piece of footage here in my browser, clip A for example, if I double click that, it opens it up in the viewer. Now by opening it up in the viewer, it allows me to navigate through the clip. I can play by hitting the space bar, I can hit the play stop, and if there's audio I can hear that as well. Basically what it's doing is it's allowing me to preview the contents of the clip. Now there's a few reasons that you might want to do this. One of the most common reasons that you open up your source footage in your viewer is so that you can isolate a portion of the clip for use in your story. Now generally speaking, when you shoot something for a film or for a documentary, you're going to start the camera rolling. You might have someone shout action, you might have someone kind of looking at the camera and then performing their action. So you have some stuff at the start of the video that you don't want naturally to be in your edit. Same at the end. They might finish their action and then walk off the shot. The camera is still rolling. It's on your clip, okay? But for this to be meaningful, then you have to have only the exact amount of the clip that you require brought down into your timeline and added to your story. So you use the viewer and a series of in and out points to isolate content within that clip. Now you can use the interface here. You've got a mark in and a mark out button here, but there's two shortcut keys that really are much more they're much quicker and to use. Because this is such a common process, then just get used to using the I key to mark an in point, using the space bar with your thumb to play the clip, spacebar to stop it, and then hitting the O key to hit an out point or to mark an out point. So what I have now in my viewer is I've got my source clip loaded up, and now I've chosen a small segment or a portion of that clip, isolated from the rest of the footage that I don't want through the use of an in and an out point. Okay, so that's why you load stuff up from here into the viewer. It's to mark an in and an out. From here, I want to get it down onto my timeline so I can do a number of things. Most simple thing to do is to just click, drag it down onto my V channel, which stands for video, let go. Now, this is important. Earlier I mentioned that if you haven't got your project sequence set up in exactly the right format for the footage that you're going to use, that there is a workaround once you're in the application. This is that workaround. When you click and drag a clip down onto a sequence, and if that sequence is set up with a different format to the footage that's being dragged into the sequence, it will give you two options. It will allow you to change the sequence settings so that they now match the footage that's coming in, or just leave things as they are. Leave the sequence as it's set up and drag the video in with its own format. Now if you want to change the sequence settings, click the change sequence settings, and now you can be guaranteed that your sequence and your video that you're bringing into the sequence match up. So I click change sequence settings, leave that also selected because this is something that you're going to want to use time and time again. Change sequence settings, and now you'll see that this side shrinks to fit the footage that has come in. Now I have a shot on my timeline, and I have a playhead that moves through the timeline. I have one shot at the moment. Ultimately I'll have hundreds of shots on the timeline. I can play them here and view them here. So this window here is showing me what I see here on the timeline. So the timeline shows me clips. This window here shows me what those clips look like in my edit. So this window shows the timeline. This viewer allows you to open up individual items, such as the item stored in my project. Now the other thing that a viewer window can do here is to load up a clip from the timeline, and we'll come back to that a little bit later on. But for the moment, look at a simple workflow. I load up my source clip that I've just shot. I see it in my viewer. I choose the footage that I want using an in and an out point. I bring it down onto the timeline, and then I can view my clip on the timeline and any other clips that I might happen to have on the timeline. Let's just say it's my elephant clip, for example. This window here will allow me to preview the edit. Okay. That, in a very basic sense, shows you what these various windows and panels are, what they do, and how you can do a very simple editing workflow going from here through the viewer down onto the timeline.